Welcome to Focusing Pathways. In this episode, Elaine chats with Laura Bavalics from Hungary. Laura has lived a life immersed in focusing. She was 18 when she started work in a kindergarten, and 2 years later she attended her first focusing workshop. Laura describes what it was like to come to focusing so young. For many years now, she has integrated focusing into her work as an educator. And her work with young children with challenging behaviour in particular has fed into and shaped her growth as an educator and as a human being. Focusing has also been an integral part of Laura's family life. I hope you enjoy listening.
Hello, Laura. You're so welcome to our podcast. I'm so happy to be speaking with you today, and I'm really looking forward to following your path over the next few moments while we're speaking together. And I'm looking forward to hearing all that has brought you here today. So I guess we'll start with our usual question, which is, how did focusing find you?
Mm. Hello, Elaine, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's really an honor to have this discussion with you. And and regarding your question, I think we have to step back a little bit, and there is something that we have to understand that I knew very early on that I want to be an educator, a kindergarten teacher, early childhood educator. So at the age of 10, I already went on this path. So very early on, I knew that this is what I want to do. It was very clear calling for me to do that. So in Hungary at the time, there was a specialized high school. It was almost like a technical school that you could start to go on practicum and internship and starting to learn education and psychology and child development and all that. So by the time I was finishing high school, I already also got, beside my high school diploma, kind of like a technical degree to be a kindergarten teacher. And and after that, obviously, I went to college, of course, but but I started to work when I was 18 in a preschool. So very early on, I got to experience in these very formative years to be with children while I was almost a child. I was a child when I was in high school still. So it was a very, very interesting experience. But but the reason why I'm saying all that, because when I started to work, I was only 18, 19 years old. And and in that school, when I started to work, there was a wonderful kindergarten teacher um, who who really saw something in me, and she was a wonderful mentor of mine. She taught a lot of things about education and methods and all that. And there was one day when when it was nap time in the classroom, and one of the little boy in my class had a bad dream, had a nightmare, and he didn't really wake up, but he was kind of crying and turning and tossing and turning around a little bit. So I sat beside him and caressed his back, and I was just saying that I'm here with you. I'm here sitting beside you. You are in the school, you had a bad dream, and I'm here with you. And when all of this was happening, this wonderful teacher, her name is Kovács Ágnes. In English, you would say Ágnes Kovács. She stepped in and she saw all that going on. And at the time, she started to studying, focusing in Budapest. She started her training. And she said to me that, you know, Laura, you should really try this out and come to one of these workshops to see see focusing. And because I was incredibly young and I really loved her and I really thought that everything what she does is amazing, I still do actually. I said, sure, of course. And it was Marta and Inze Stappert from Holland who were starting to teach focusing in Budapest, in Hungary. And so I went to their workshop, and this is how it all started. I remember the workshop was on my birthday, so that was my birthday gift that I started. It was a 3-day workshop, and that was a gift that I got to know focusing and started to experience it, what it is.
Wow.
So it was a long answer to your question, but I feel that to understand the whole story, it really makes sense to see that all together.
Yeah. Yeah, it must have been incredible to know like at 10 years old that that was what you wanted to do, and then to find that path
Yeah.
through. And yeah, it was almost like everything was kind of, you were always going in that direction to work with in education and with kids. And it seemed to me that
Yeah.
it was very natural to you. That was what you did when that child was having the nightmare, and you just knew instinctively that just to be with that, to create that safety around that. That was amazing. And how was it then for you to go from that to into a focusing environment and experience that for the first time? How did you find that?
Well, two important things. I think one of them was very interesting that because Marta and Inza didn't speak Hungarian,
Yeah.
the whole training was translated. So I didn't think about it much at the time, but I feel later on it was very interesting experience that there was always that time when the translation was going on, and that time also gave time for kind of understand what's happening, but at the same time also the time when it was speaking in either German or in English, it was also time when I somewhat understood what's going on, but it was also time to pay attention inside. It was something unique about it, learning focusing and trying to understand focusing through translation. It was interesting. I can't really put my finger on it what it is, but something is unique about it.
Mm.
And the other thing is what I felt for a long, long time, that I was always the youngest. And I was always working or studying around grown-ups and much more older than me. I felt at that time. It's so interesting because I always tell this story about Agnes, the teacher who I talked about, who saw me, and I always say that there was this wonderful older teacher who became my mentor, and then I realized after a while that she was younger than I am right now when I felt that there's this older teacher, because for a 19 and 20-year-old person, someone in their mid 40s seems like a nice old teacher. So that was a unique thing. But for a long time it was nice but also difficult, right? Because
Mm.
when I was 20, I didn't have that that much life just yet. I didn't have that much difficult situations in my life and processes and all that. I had my fair share of experiences, obviously, but nothing compared to someone in their 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever. So that was a lot first, and I it felt a little bit strange, and I didn't know how to grasp it. I had a sense of it, but on the other hand, I felt that, oh, whoa, I'm not that grown up for that just yet. And so after that 3-day workshop, I didn't continue. I was just, keep in touch with those people who were attending to that workshop, but I didn't actively study onward or took other courses or workshops.
Mm.
But then in 2000, no, in 19, it is still 19, in 1998, that's when in Hungary, we had the very first children focusing conference. It was an international conference in Hungary, in a small town on the north of the country, and obviously I went to that conference. I mean, it was incredible that huge international conference is happening in our country. So I found, and it's also because Marta was involved working with children as a therapist, and she created Children's Corner at the Focusing Institute. She felt that it's very important to work with children, and that's how she organized that first Focusing conference with a wonderful team here in Hungary. And after that, I went to this conference. I met with the most beautiful, wonderful people. And I felt that, man, this is where I want to be every moment in my life. And that was the time when I met with Lucy Bowers and Susan Watson and Zach Bokidis and these wonderful, wonderful people who were all paying attention to each other, being so kind with each other. And it was just an amazing experience. I was 21 years old at that time, and for me it was a huge thing. I mean, I'd never experienced an international conference before, and you also have to understand the history of Hungary. I mean, we didn't have that much big international things happening during those years when it was a different kind of party in Hungary. So all in all, it it was that conference in '98 when things changed and shifted in me, for sure.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear because when I met you first, and I was like, that was one of the things I noticed because you were young, and I was like, you must have learned this when you were very young. And for me, I have a similar experience, and I would have
Hmm.
loved to have had this when I was younger. So it's really interesting to hear when you say, that you didn't, there was something about not feeling like you had the life experience that that focusing could affect
Yeah.
or make it changes with. So it was after, it was once you went to the conference. Then was that when you were able to more bring it into your classroom setting, or had you kind of integrated it before that?
Well, it's such an interesting question because as you were saying it, that it was so natural how I was reacting and responding to that chat, right? So
Mm,
obviously there was a lot what came from my family. I have wonderful parents and there was a and grandparents and it was something what I brought from home for sure, how
yeah.
to attend and be with each other. On the other hand, I also feel that starting my education towards education, I was also very young. So if you put a 14 or 15 years old or 16-year-old in a group of kids and say tell them a story or sing them songs, then you are so very young. You kind of, as you are growing, as you are learning how to be with children while you are also growing yourself. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it was a very interesting experience that you are a child, but you are not a child. You are responsible for them, but on the other hand, there are other teacher who is responsible for them. And and I feel, and now I know because I've been a teacher for 30 years now, but now I know that that I was, because I started early, I was able to be with my inner child, with the children. And that helped so much to
Mm-hmm.
connect and learn about how it is okay to be with kids. How is it good enough for them to be with them? And when I got to know focusing at that first experience, I felt that uh, that it's something interesting. It's something that feels very natural in a way, even though it was strange. But I also felt that I'm not grown up enough for that to learn more about it, or I don't really belong to that group just yet. And it was maybe just that space at that time, who knows. But then I got to know a different space and a different environment at that conference. And after that, it wasn't a question that this is what I want to learn. So before the conference, I didn't bring focusing into my classroom as I was knowing about it. I have no idea that what I was doing, it was part of it or not. But consciously, I didn't. But after the conference, obviously, I kept in touch with number of people, and then I started to become a focusing trainer. After the conference, there was this very active trainings and workshops in Hungary. So I started to learn that from Marta and Inza Stappert. And Marta also saw something special in me related to children and focusing. So she also invited me to do children focusing workshop with her. You can imagine, I'm there in my 20s, and Marta Stappert, this wonderful person who is teaching focusing here, says that, "Oh, Laura, would you do a workshop with me?" I said, yeah, of course. So it's so amazing. I can't even explain what surreal and wonderful experience it was that I got to do that, and learning from her in first hand, and getting all these experiences and getting all that support. That meant so much. And isn't that interesting that first I was saying that I'm not grown up enough for that and I don't belong to that group. And while I was still the youngest for a long, long time, I also started to feel that I'm much more supported by this group. I very much belong, but I'm always going to be the youngest one. I always going to have, in a way, a special treatment because, oh, she's the little one in one way, but on the other hand, also that, oh, we have to protect her in a way. So it was a unique position, but and I learned to love it and learned to like it, and sometimes it felt really, really good. And obviously, I wouldn't continue if it wouldn't feel good and comfortable where I was.
Yeah, wow, I that must have been incredible working with Marta like that, and she's so important in the children's focusing world even now, and her legacy lives on, and through you and Renee and Harriet and loads of other people, and it's just wonderful to hear. Um,
Yeah.
so when you were training with her, were you in classrooms with her? Or were you training other people, or were you working with children?
Well, what I did, that I was a classroom teacher, so I had my own classes all the time. I worked in public school system, so I always had kindergarteners around to practice with. So that was nice. So I always had children around that I could kind of sense what it is and how I could be with them, and try out kind of different kind of exercises with them, and go carefully, but also having that kind of freedom that it's a safe process, and it's nice to see how they respond to it and how I am with them, how I am responding to that inner knowledge. So that was always good. So I had that experience, and also I had workshops with Marta, and also Esther Kovács. Her name is also very important. She is a psychologist, and she was also my mentor all through this process, becoming a focusing trainer. And she invited me to a number of workshops, which wasn't about children focusing, but it was about teaching focusing to others, and that was very nice all through my training process, that there were these wonderful people who were trusting me and inviting me to teach with them, and I got to learn a lot from them. And we also, with a psychologist from this group, we also invited some kids to hold a children focusing workshop for them. But it was only a couple of times, but it was also an interesting experience.
Yeah.
So these were the early steps when I was kind of trying to find my way and my footing. But on the other hand, I also, that was the time when I was learning focusing for myself and learning about dream work and how to be with myself, and I had lots of process around being a teacher and communicating with parents and continuing my own education, how I am with my own parents, with my own childhood. So it was a lot of process, not only about learning children focusing, it was also mainly working about learning about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you say, that learning about yourself is the most important step, even when working with children? Or,
Yeah,
yeah, it's.
definitely. Um, for a long time, I know that much more deeper now. I mean, um, it I was taught well about that from Marta and Agnes and Esther, both all of them. And I could say other names too, but they are very important to me. So that's why I wanted to have their names here. So I was learning a lot from them, and yeah, definitely. Children naturally know how to focus. They naturally live in their body. They are much more easily connected with everything what's going on inside because they live it. And children focusing is really about the grown-ups around them and how we can find grounding and how we can give them space and how we can support them. So obviously, we have to do our work as grown-ups to make sure that we are able to accompany children's natural focusing process, what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned something there earlier about how you were still connected with your inner child when you were like 14, 15. And do you think as we get older that we lose that connection? And when do you think we start losing that? And how important is it to have that relationship within adults in ourselves?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I'm in a unique position because I am working with kids. I am very much connected with my inner child, obviously. But I think it's always there, and we know that it's always there. But the reason I think we are getting more jumbled up in our feelings and our situation because life throws at us all sorts of things. We have to be responsible for many things. We get overwhelmed, we get overloaded, and actually I also think we are just living our life. What's happening, there are other things that at times are more important: finding your partner, finding your good job, getting your things around you, getting stable in life, moving away from your parents, and kind of finding your own grounding and your right. And that could be a busy time. So I think no wonder that if you look at the focusing community, I think no wonder that number of people finding focusing in a little bit older, because that's when we kind of starting to catch up on it, that, oh my gosh, my life was just running and running and I was running in it and something doesn't feel right, something is missing. I need something to find my footing, my grounding, and what's happening with me. And when those questions start to arrive, that's when we start to look for something, and that's how people can find focusing. And um, and then uh, then we can kind of circle back to those experiences, what happened in our childhood and how is our inner child at that time.
Yeah,
So of course I know that everyone's process is different, but I think that could be a case
yeah,
regarding the
yeah.
question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's so important. and I think it's something that it gets left behind, but it's never left behind. It's kind of put in a box and never attended to. And I think everybody should
Yeah.
attend to that at some stage, because it's part of us and it never leaves us. And it's important for that relationship to be there. And I like
Yeah,
the
saying that, our inner child is with us, as you are saying too. But when you see on the street, you see kids playing or they kicking the ball, you kick it back, and that's your inner child what's responding to that. Or when you are traveling on a bus and you see a cute baby and you smile and the baby smiles back, that's also the inner child is communicating there and getting
yeah.
touched by something. Or when you hear a story that reminds you, or a song or something. So all through your adult life, there are all these little callings for your inner child. But I think it's very different when you can find focusing and when you can really intentionally listen to your inner child process. So that could be such a gift for sure.
Yeah, I love the way you say that. Like it's always there, like that little response of kicking the ball back or smiling at a baby. Like focusing is not difficult. It's there all the time. It's just about being aware and noticing, isn't it? And then just taking the time to sit with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to hear
Yes,
that.
yes, yeah.
Mm, yeah, that's lovely. And so you've say how long now have you been, let's say, working with children while consciously integrating, focusing into your
I
environment?
s- I started I started my first class as a kindergarten teacher in 1995. So ever since then I'm a teacher, and I
Mm-hmm.
had my very first focusing course in 97. So basically, I lived only 2 years without focusing as a teacher. And
Wow.
since then, I always had focusing with me. So basically, in 98, after the international conference, it was very intentional to incorporate focusing into my everyday life as a human being, but also as a teacher, as an educator as well. So it's a long time. I don't know, 28 years or something.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. And would you have noticed, you know, the effect that of your focusing, knowing focusing, having on the children that have now grown up? Because most of them now must be
Mm,
in their 20s. Would you have noticed anything, in their behavior, in their way of being, that maybe showed that the support of
mm,
focusing helped them to be who they are right now?
hmm. Well, it would be lovely to meet with them as grown-ups for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I have two response for that. Um, One of them is going back a little bit in 2000, 2001 or so. Around that time, I had a special class. They were all children about age 7 and 8, and they didn't start elementary school. They didn't start first grade, but they were not in kindergarten anymore. In Hungary, you may have to understand that also in Hungary, children start preschool kindergarten at age of 3. It's mandatory to start at age of 3, and they are
Mm-hmm.
staying in this kindergarten kind of setting where free play is very important till age of 6 or 7, and they starting first grade in elementary school at age of 6 or 7. So these children who I'm talking about, they were all past 7 years of age. They supposed to start first grade, but they didn't start it. They went to this special class where they were registered in the elementary school, but their class was still in a kindergarten, and their teacher was a kindergarten teacher. That was me, and also a primary school teacher. And they all got individual therapy and consultation from a group of special education teachers and therapists, and these umbrella of of specialty people, they were also consulting with the parents and working with the parents too. So that was a very, very unique class, and it was a very unique form. It was we were working through a grant and a proposal, and we had to apply for it each year. But it was 10 young kids, mostly boys, and they were the ones who were kind of misbehaving in their previous classes, in their previous years in education. They were, the bad guys who really started to believe about themselves that they are bad. They were the one who always got into fights. Their learning curve was behind. So basically they had this one extra year when they didn't have to start to learn to read and write and math and all that. They still had time for play, but also this year was about kind of focus on their emotion, their social emotional skills, their communication, finding their grounding, and believing themselves that they are not the bad kids. So those years were when I was working with these sets of kids, that was very unique and very important experience for me as an educator, but also related to focusing, because that was the time when I could really take notes about it, what was going on in the class. And they stayed with me only 1 year. We started in September and they stayed with me till middle of June. And I started from day one, very short, very simple, kind of focusing exercises with them. Obviously, I was listening to them and paying attention to them, but at the same time, I always started to have these little circle times with them when we were paying attention inside. But you also have to understand that these kids, only a couple of them were girls. So I always refer to them, the boys, because it was very, very formative years. And but they were very disturbed children. I mean, in the first month or so, in September and October, it was really about keeping them alive because they were really fighting with each other. There are no English words in my vocabulary explaining how disturbed they were and how aggressive they could be verbally and physically with each other. So in mid-October, I was there crying that I give back my diploma. There's no way that I can do this, and I have no idea what to do with these children. And it was so important that by that time I had focusing, I had supportive people around me who said, it's okay, it's very tough, we can hear you, just go back in there, take it day by day, and we are here. That kind of, okay, kind of, I have my people here, I have myself, and there is this great supportive community. Let's go at it. So it was very interesting, but I was also growing so much through those years as a person, as an educator, as a human being. But to go back to focusing, I took notes each day about what was going on, what kind of exercise we did, what the children were saying, what was their response, and Marta and Inza came to that class sometime, I don't know, in October maybe, and it was a nightmare, really. I mean, they were shouting. They had a hard time to sit down. They had obviously only minutes as they were able to pay attention because they lived trauma and all that, what was going on for them. And there was a video what Marta and Inza took at that time, and it was interesting to watch it, how so much energy they had. And I say all these negative things related to how they were behaving, but on the other hand, they were just incredibly gifted and wonderful, creative little kids. So that's also important to say there. And through that video you could see the glimpse of that behind all these tough guys and all this behavior, there are these creative, emotional, very, very sensitive little children. And so I was keep going at it. And every day we had these circle times. And first it was only a few minutes, but close to the end of the school year, like in the springtime even. It was like 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes circle time when they were kind of quietly paying attention and drawing and creating art through clay and sharing their own feelings with each other and listening to each other. And Marta and Inza came back to that exact same class sometime in April, maybe. And and they took this video again, and it was like a 20 or 30 minutes video about how these kids are listening to each other and paying attention to each other. So to circle back to your question, have I seen an effect? I mean, that was the clearest effect what you can see, that if you really keep at it and you don't give up and you have these little moments and you appreciate each and every moment as a precious thing, then at the end of the school year, you have these wonderful kids who believe that they are not bad, just there could be a behavior that's not okay for someone else or not okay for them. But they also learn to regulate themselves. They also learn to kind of handle their emotions better, able to communicate with others. There was an inner communication also. It was really wonderful. So that was very hands-on experience, how much effect it can have in a child's life, what was going on.
Yeah.
And I was saying that there is another answer to that, and it's a kind of, because I was saying it would be lovely to see them as grown-ups, but when you're working with a class of kids, you're also working with their parents, with their families. So I always have focusing exercises with the parents also when we have parent teacher meetings. So it's very fluent for me to use focusing in every avenue where I am. And after the children go to elementary school, even for a few years, and I don't meet with them anymore, every once in a while, couple of years later, the parents show up in my class and they took their kids into school, and then they come back to the school where I am with the little ones. And the parents say that, oh, I just had to come back for a little bit to kind of feel this energy, to feel this attention, because there was something unique and special here in your school, but we just have to feel for a while. And there are parents who come back to consultation and meeting because they see the value of it, what it means, and they they crave for more of this kind of attention, what focusing can bring in their life. So that's the other answer, that you affect the
Yeah.
parents, and through the parents obviously affect the children as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's an incredible example, Laura. It's it's the patience required to and the
Mm,
just to stick with it and knowing and looking for those little glimmers of um just that just I just love the way you saw the creativity in those boys and allowed that to be your guide almost and to help
Yeah.
to go through that process. And it is a slow process, and sometimes I find that talking to people about focusing it there's there's a sense that it'll fix something straight away, and it's not about fixing anything. It's just
mm,
about meeting it where it's at, and not about perfection. Nothing has to be perfect, and it never will be. And it's just about holding all of that really, and allowing it to find its own
yeah,
ways. And that's just an incredible example. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel that it shaped so much on me, that living that experience with them. It was a real growing and learning at those few years for sure.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And yeah, it's about everyday life really, isn't it? Being meeting it as it comes, and yeah, it just sounds amazing the way you were with all of those boys and girls, just to give them that space and patience, and knowing that that they were supported no matter what. So yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Mm.
So I guess we'll just come towards the end there, but you ended up in Ireland as well at one stage, didn't you? At another
Yeah.
conference. Can you tell us how that happened?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was really wonderful to be there, and I think it's part of the story, and I think it's okay to say it here because number of people already know it about me, that I met with my husband Zach Bokidis in one of these international children focusing conference, because there was one in 98, but there was also one in 2000 here in Hungary, and that's when I really connected with my husband. And it also made something special and unique in my life and in our relationship, that both of our knowing and living focusing for a number of years, and um and that mattered, that even in our, I don't know, passionate fights, we could still find grounding and still be able to open the door and say, okay, what's going on here? Let's listen. And I think that matters, that you could understand each other in a different level. But it's also interesting that, remember I was talking about how interesting it was to learn focusing in a translated way, right?
Mm,
That there
yes.
was translation all the time. But isn't that interesting that my husband didn't speak Hungarian, he spoke in English, and my language, my love language, was also in English. So it's interesting how it turned out. So so because we met in an international children focusing conference when there was one in Ireland, by that time we had our daughter Anna, and I said, man, it would be a dream to show up as a family to a children focusing conference, because it's such a unique thing that we
Yeah.
met there, we created a family, and focusing is such a huge part of our life. And so we went there as a family, and Anna was the guest of honor as a little girl, and the wonderful team in Ireland created a little package for her with coloring
Ah,
books and stickers, and she had her own little badge. So she still remembers it was such a fun and amazing experience back then. It's very important part of her childhood to have that. And now, she's almost 22 by now, but at that time she was a little girl, and she really enjoyed that special attention, and focusing came very natural for her because she lived it through
mm.
us, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. It must be incredible to be brought up in a focusing environment. For you as a mother, it must have been very supportive and to know all of that, that resources, have all those resources from the children's focusing. But I'm sure it was still challenging and all of that, but it was, um, yeah, it must have been very comforting to have that as a resource and support for you as well. Um, and I've
Mhm.
heard Anna speak, and as she says, she doesn't even know really what focusing is because she just lives it. I just think that's
Yeah,
incredible. Yeah, it's incredible.
yeah, yeah. Because I think it's important to say that there was children focusing online conferences in last year or so, and Anna was presenting on one of those, or a couple of them actually, and she was talking about how was it for her to grow up with focusing. That was her topic on that
Mm.
conference, and I remember she was saying to people that, well, she's presenting on this focusing conference. She better look up what it really
Yeah.
is before she present. So she was reading afterwards, kind of, because she was so cute and so sweet how she's talk about it, that her parents never sat her down to tell her that, okay, now there is
Yeah.
this person called Jean Janlin, and and there is this method focusing, and now this is what we're gonna do. So
Yeah.
she never had that, obviously. She just, as she was growing since as a baby, it was a natural part of her life. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
It's really nice,
yeah.
and
It's
it's
just,
unique for sure.
yeah, it was just like a way of living for her, you know. It wasn't anything that she applied or anything. It was just you just, and it's an attitude as well. And you know, it's such a wonderful way to, like, us as adults trying to relearn that. It can be a little bit difficult, but if you can grow up with it, it
Yeah.
must be incredible. And yeah, so I guess to finish it, is there anything that you hope for in the future for children's focusing or focusing, and maybe where it's going and what you'd like to see?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Well, I have lots of hope, and I think our focusing community, the children focusing community, is a very unique and wonderful group, and I see more and more people who are really taking it seriously, how important it is to pay attention to the children in our world and around us, and how important it is to pay attention to their emotional well-being, and grown-ups taking more responsibilities for themselves in that role. So um, I keep hoping that with the International Focusing Institute, we can keep on going and organize roundtables for children and focusing, and having more online conferences where it could be accessible for people around the world. I always appreciate that a lot. Um, and I feel that the online communication is allowing us to have this international connection, and it always helps to see that it's it's beyond you, beyond your own smaller circle. There is this worldwide community who kind of feels in the same way around that. And I think sometimes even when I get lost and I feel kind of alone, or I feel my struggles, I know people who I can turn to in this international community, or I
Mm.
just remember that, oh, this is what they were saying, or let's just get in a group chat or something, and that really kind of open up and brighten up things what could be difficult at the time when you are just looking at so close it to yourself. So I'm hoping that we could have lots of meetings, and we could connect with one another and support each other through that. And I know it's a cliche, but I'm gonna say it anyhow, that if the grown-ups feel okay and they taking care of themselves, the children gonna be just fine. So we really have to pay attention to ourselves, and make sure that we are okay for them,
Yeah,
to be there for them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I second that. It's about,
Yeah.
you know, we have the responsibility of that, and it's on for us to look after ourselves, and as you said, the children will be fine then. And I love the way you said about
Yeah.
it's such an international community, and it just goes to show, like, children are the same all over the world, no matter what culture or anything at all. Everybody, you know, they need the same love, care, and attention, and no matter where they are, and yeah, especially nowadays. So yeah, that would be just I just love the support that the international community has created.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we finish up right now, or do you feel like it's been feels
Well,
complete for you?
I think yes, I think it's really important for me to kind of honor those people who are not here with us anymore, related to children focusing. I know we talked about Marta and Marta Stappert, but I really want to kind of bring her name here, because she's such a huge influence on many people, especially for those who work with children. So I really want to honor her memory here.
Hmm.
Also, Lucy Bowers, who who was a great friend of mine, and I still miss her every day because she had such a deep wisdom and love and care for children and for everyone. So I really want to honor her here too, and also my beloved husband Zach Bukidis, who worked with babies and families all through his life, and he was very dedicated to support families, and 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 I feel that it's important to honor him also in this podcast, to have all of their memories here, what they have done in the focusing community as well. So yeah, this is what I felt important to say, and I hope we're gonna meet with lots of people in Vienna at the International Focusing Conference, and hopefully some children focusing people will gather again there. And I may say that here, that in June 1st, just before the conference in Vienna, in Budapest, we're organizing a children focusing event. It's gonna be a one-day event in the school where I'm working. And of course, everyone is invited who want to come over from Vienna for a day trip before the conference starts, to kind of kick it kick it off with the children focusing event. So
Wonderful.
you can find information on TIFI's website if you are interested to come over to Budapest.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Yeah, so it's focusing.org is, and go to
Yeah.
the Children in Focusing's page for more resources, but also the courses page will have all the different children's focusing
Yes.
events up there as well. So that's really important to know. Yeah, so is there any other resource pages or anything like that that would be useful for people, or it's the Institute's one is probably the best one, is it? Do you have one yourself?
Well, I think what really important, and it's good for people to remember, that focusing.org, the International Focusing Institute's official website, has a children and focusing section. And if you click on it, you can find lots of information, easy to read information about children and focusing. And also there are a number of articles which is available for free, when you can take a look at them, download them, read them. So there are materials that you can find and reach if you are interested to learn more about children and focusing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming and sharing your focusing world with everybody and with us today. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah.